Hi guys, I'm Louisa Brown and I'm going to unearth some interesting views on the subject evolution versus creationism. This falls under a broader topic that we'll discuss in time called the Great Deception. I trust that this will bring you a better understanding on the subject and that it will help you defend your belief and your faith, which is Christianity. So let's start. Can I first state that the information that I will be given is all available on Google. It's all reliable sources and you are welcome. Feel free to go and have a look at it, go and search it, and then just to confirm that what I'll be teaching you is relevant and it is true. First of all, let's examine what is evolution. The theory of evolution. The theory of evolution is a scientific theory that essentially states that species change over time. There are many different ways species change, but most of them can be described by the idea of natural selection. The theory of evolution through natural selection was the first scientific theory that put together evidence of change through time as well as a mechanism of how it happens. But let's just pause there and let's look at what the word theory actually means. By doing so, we'll find words like plausible, a belief. You find words like it's a unproved assumption. Right, it's a great abstract of principles and it's an abstract thought, which means it's speculation. As we all know, the famous Charles Darwin and his grandfather, both scientists alike, proposed that species changed over time, but neither man could explain how or why they changed. They also kept the ideas under wraps because of how controversial the thoughts were compared to accepted religious views at the time. Because if I have to take you back in time, Christians believe in creation as it is stated in the book of Genesis, that in the beginning God created. And that is what we've believed in. That is what the whole world population believed in up until a certain time when these men brought their observations to light and they began to challenge creation. Without a doubt, evolution comes the dominant theory for explaining the origin of today. And it is the proposed theory for life today. The world as it is today believes in evolution and it is influenced by major topics such as biology, astrology and archaeology. And it is being taught in our schools today as a subject, and the reality about it is that it has no facts or factual grounds that it is based on. The Cobb County Board of Education decided to put a sticker on their textbooks that stated that evolution is a theory, not a fact, regarding the origin of all living things. This textbook contained materials on evolution, and that the material should be approached with an open mind, studied carefully and critically considered. This was on March 28, 2002. But the judge said that the stickers were unconstitutional and that it was confusing the children. This is stated in the article that I have quoted previously. What this basically means, beloved, is that there is a war for our minds going out there, and this war is trying to take over the way we perceive things and the way we read the Bible right now. This is a quote from the Virginian Pilot, a Landmark Communications Incorporated, and I want you to read with me. It speaks about evolution collapses under the white light of laboratory scrutiny, propaganda hype, peer opinion, and a closed educational system have concealed the truth. It is not even science. Let us begin to look at a few quotes that I've extracted from Google. Scientists, some famous, have written dozens of books and hundreds of articles meticulously documenting evolution's inadequacy. Across the world, advanced degree scientists by the thousands have discarded evolution. Others, debunking evolution, don't know what to believe. Sir Fred Hoyle, British astronomer, professor of astronomy at Cambridge University, wrote, "The chance that higher life forms might have emerged this way is comparable with the chance that a tornado sweeping through a junkyard might assemble a Boeing 747 from the materials therein." Next up, Professor Louis Bonneau, Director of Research at the French National Center of Scientific Research, wrote, "Evolution is a fairy tale for grown-ups. This theory has helped nothing in the progress of science. It is useless." Another one that is worth looking at, lastly, Malcolm Muggeridge, world-famous journalist and philosopher. He wrote, "I myself am convinced that the theory of evolution will be one of the great jokes in the history books of the future. Posterity will marvel that so very flimsy and dubious a hypothesis could be accepted with the incredible credulity that it has."
On this, to be critiquing the origin of life research. It is abiological. It is before biology takes over. This is purely synthetic organic chemistry. Do not know how to build even a simple bacterium. The simplest bacterium with its 256 protein coding genes, we have no idea how to build it. First of all, we don't know how to build the molecules, the 4 classes of molecules that are needed for it. We don't know how to, even if we had those 4 classes of molecules, assemble them even into the simplest of bacteriums. We don't know how to do that. One can do that with the technologies we have today. We can make technologies, but we can't even make the simplest bacterium. Anybody who would say something contrary does not know what they are talking about. Classes of molecules, we need the nucleic acids, and then the homochiral systems that for the amino acids, which then need to be built up into protein structures. We need the carbohydrates, which have to be built up into the polycarbohydrate structures. And then we need the lipids, which also are chiral. All of these we need in homochiral form. We don't know how to do this in any prebiotic type scenario at all. These have not been made. And then to assemble these into a cell, it's never been done. So there's a gross misunderstanding. And this misunderstanding has come because of the projections of those who work in the area of origin of life. They do one little thing and then they extrapolate it, and then they work with the press to ramp it up even more, and they project as if they really know it. And so the lay person reads this and says, you see, scientists understand. And then it's not just the lay person, scientists think that other scientists understand all of this, but they do not. There's a great negative outcome of this beyond just leading the audience, leading the general public astray. What happens ultimately is you end up with 100 million people in the United States that no longer believe this. And then you have the scientific elite saying, why is there 100 million people that don't buy into this? And that distrust will go beyond just that particular topic. It will extend into other topics. And so it yields a distrust of science. Some people argue that since there's been hundreds of millions of years available, the probability that there's the chance that these things could happen in hundreds of millions of years. But that's not true. Time actually can be an enemy when it comes to organic synthesis. Prebiotic synthesis is before biology. So one has to make chemicals. Many of the chemicals that need to be made for life are kinetic products, meaning that they're not the most thermodynamically stable form. For example, carbohydrates, which is the main class of compounds. These are the units that hook together DNA. These are the units that have identifying aspects on cell structure. These are the units that the cell is going to need for the energy of life. Carbohydrates are kinetic products, meaning that if they should form, they would decompose. They decompose over time. And relatively short amounts of time, they decompose. The very reactions that make them, unless somebody is there to pull them out, to fish them out, to stop the process and to put them in a bottle under inert conditions in a freezer. And not just one, there's many, many different types you have to do this. They end up going through a process of what's referred to as caramelization, meaning that they polymerize. They polymerize. The very aldol reactions that were used to make them just continue. And you get polyaldols, you get polycondensation reactions, and they caramelize. Or they undergo, with formaldehyde, which is a presumed prebiotic chemical, they undergo rapid Cannizzaro reactions. So the aldehyde is oxidized to formic acid, and this nice carbohydrate that you made has just been reduced. So the aldehyde from the carbohydrate has gone back to an alcohol. So there's competing reactions. So time does not solve the issue. The other problem is if you had 400 million years to get to a certain point in a synthesis of a particular class of compounds, now you run out of material. Anytime you do synthesis, you run out of material, even when you've optimized the yields, and you got to go back to the beginning. Well, say it took you 400 million years to get to a certain point on a synthesis. Now you have to go back and make more. But how do you go back and make more? Because nature never kept a laboratory notebook. Doesn't know how to go back. Never kept a record. So even if it could make more, it doesn't know how to, so it's got to start all over again somehow. But it doesn't know how to start over again, doesn't know why to start over again, because it doesn't know what it's going toward. So if you look at it, people have been trying for a long time. If we just take Miller-Urey as the first example, where Miller and Urey took some basic chemicals that are presumed on a prebiotic earth, hydrogen cyanide, formaldehyde, and CO2, and they put those across a high voltage, simulating lightning, you can get some racemic amino acids out of those. But those racemic amino acids were racemic. Okay, that was in 1952. That was 2/3 of a century ago. What has happened in 2/3 of a century since Miller-Urey in other fields? Well, we've had human space flight. We have satellite connectivity. We have the internet. We have the entire silicon era of microchips, and we have computer technology. We have all of this. In the same 66 years, 2/3 of a century, we are still exactly where Miller and Urey were. We make up.
I hope that clip was very insightful. You can catch Dr. James M. Tor on social media. You will find him. He is in chemistry, and if you want to know more about him, you can follow him on social media. That is all I have time for today in this session. I will uncover some more at a later stage, but I hope that this has bring you some insight, and it has opened your eyes a little bit more to what evolution is. And remember, evolution is not science. Thank you for listening.